Blog Talk Radio.
Yeah, Joey Giggles here. How's everybody doing today? Really exciting show. We're finally getting this show off the ground, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, we have author Shane O'Neill on the show. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Shane O'Neill is going to be on today's show. He's going to be talking about his books, his new books out, Orchid, and the Chronicles of Dracula. Really interesting stuff. And he's going to tell us a little bit about how he got into the whole story of Dracula and what got him to, focus a lot on Dracula. It's just his main focus, And we'll be chatting about that in the beginning, and then we'll chat about his books that are coming out. Really exciting stuff, and then we'll find out where we could buy those books. This is a best-selling author. He's here. He's coming from overseas to chat with us. Really exciting stuff there. I love when I have international folks on the show. It's always great to have international folks come on the show to chat with us. And that brings the international listening public, which is great, and it's great to see all of you here in the chat room and about 100 listeners. This is great, and it keeps going up. So, hey, everybody, come on in and join us. This is Joey Giggles. I've had this show now for 2 years. Really exciting stuff here on blogtalkradio.com. And it's been a success, and it's only been a success because of the great listeners that we have and the great guests that we have come on the show, Shane being one of them. And, I'm so happy that we're finally getting the show off the ground, folks. I really want to learn more about what Shane writes about and how, he comes up with his writings and stuff like that for Dracula and the research that he's done on Dracula. Really interesting stuff there. I mean, we spoke about it in the last show briefly, but we're going to get more in depth here in this show. I'm really excited to do this show, and I'm really happy to bring you, ladies and gentlemen, author Shane O'Neill. Hello, Shane. How are you?
Hey, Joey.
Oh, man, it's great to have you on.
Yeah, it's good to finally be here.
Yeah. All right, so this is the first time, actually the second time you're on the show, but we really didn't get into a bio on yourself. So if you could please let us know a little bit about you, and then we'll delve into Dracula a little bit.
Okay, well, I don't want to reveal my age.
No, it's okay. You don't have to do that.
Basically, I'm an Irishman. I'm from the southwest of Ireland, County Cork, a lovely fishing community called Castletown Bear. I currently live in Norway, where I have my family. I've been there about 4 years now. Previously, I've lived and worked in many countries, obviously UK, New Zealand, several countries around Europe, and just worked on my Dracula Chronicles concept as and when I could. But now for the last 9 years, 10 years, I've invested an awful lot of time in the project. And aside from work and family, my main focus now is on bringing the Chronicles to the public domain.
That's awesome. And I want to delve into that a little bit with you. I know you have a series of books out. So why don't you share with us the series of books that you have out right now and the new books that are coming out. I know I have pictures going by of the book Orchid. I also have pictures of the books going by. I have The Lamb of God, which is part of the Chronicles. So I want to, delve into this a little bit. Let us know how many books you have out there, and so on and so forth.
Okay, well, it's an ongoing concept which began about 22 years ago. I actually wrote the first parts of the book in 1984, which is going on for 30 years now, and about 50,000 words then of a story which will probably be in Chronicle 9 or 10 later on, because it's a very expansive concept which spans 5 or 6 centuries, and it's going to be an awful lot of books. And from where I began writing properly with the series around 1992, for 13 years I wrote the book Reckoning Day, which is a monstrous tome. It's enough for about 4 or 5 volumes on its own. But that was based in December 1986, so solely in that month. And of course, I wanted to go back in time and introduce my concept of the real man, and a new concept of Dracula the vampire, and combine the two. So what I wrote originally as the first of the Dracula Chronicles is now probably going to be Chronicle 9 or 10. And I've since written many books. I released one, Bound by Blood, at the end of last year, which I broke into 2 because of its size. And those are actually going to be number 5 and 6 in this series. But I started with those 2 books to give my readers the vampire first, and that's what a good friend of mine recommended, that I should maybe give the vampire first and then go back in time, which is what I've done, kind of like George Lucas did with Star Wars. So you've got the vampire now in 2 books, starting from the time of his death at Snargov in December 1476, and my concept of how the vampire was created, and what he represents, and what he stands for, and what he's going to do. The next book coming out then obviously is Chronicle number 1, The Path to Decay, which is out in September, which goes back to the concept of the book at the time of creation, and then moves to the crucifixion, and then on to the night of Dracula's birth, and the birth of his brother, who will be the balance to the evil that he becomes. The Lamb of God, which you mentioned previously, is a prequel for the Path to Decay and the entire series. So if people just want to have a tester and have a look at what it's all going to be about, and get a flavour for the books, the Lamb of God is there for you to do that. There's also going to be an audio version available very, very soon. The Lamb of God will probably be out in the next couple of days.
Okay, great. What about Orchid? Where does Orchid fit into all of this?
Orchid is something separate entirely. I've always wanted to write a collection of horror short stories where I want to explore the darker recesses of the human psyche in each individual story. And I started with Orchid, which is the first one, and it explores the lengths a man will go to for love. It explores insanity and, of course, evil. The series for the short stories are called Tales of the Black Sabbath. I have a lifelong love affair with the heavy metal band Black Sabbath.
Oh, okay.
As well as many other rock groups, but Black Sabbath especially are very close to my heart. So I thought they would be great to name my stories after. And of course, the title for each story will be based on a real Black Sabbath track or song. So Orchid is one such song. Oh,
that's great. I honestly, I'm a big Black Sabbath fan. I like Ozzy Osbourne and those guys.
You and me both.
Yeah, I've loved listening to him sing for years, and in the 80s and the 90s. And that's a really good premise, actually. And I didn't know. This is great that you're basing, the horror stories off of this, which is great, off of the Black Sabbath, which is awesome. I like that.
I wouldn't actually base the stories themselves on the songs, because that would be plagiarizing. But
right. Of course, right.
I kind of look on it as a tribute, what's the word I want to use? I can't think actually off the top of my head. But it's just like my own personal tribute to them, to name my series after them. And of course, awesome. Black Sabbath is a fantastic name for anything to do with horror.
Oh yeah, definitely, I agree. All right, so let's delve into Dracula a little bit. I know we got into Dracula, in the last show a little tiny bit. I want to know, I mean, what inspired you to write about Dracula and research Dracula? Because I know this is your main focus. And it's great that it is. And I personally want to know what inspired you to, write about Dracula and know Dracula and so on and so forth.
Well, the only genre that's ever existed for me, right from my early teens up till now, has been the horror genre. I just love it. All the books I read in my teens that me and my friends passed around were all books by Stephen King, Dean Koontz, Sean Hudson, James Herbert, John Saul, Anne Rice, all these fantastic horror writers. Mm-hmm. And the only movies I really was interested in were horror movies as well. And of course, I saw the Christopher Lee Dracula movies from a very young age, and was totally spellbound by him. I'm still spellbound by him. The man is absolutely incredible, mm-hmm. and the most perfect choice to bring Dracula to the big screen. But of course, that's based more on Bram Stoker's Dracula. As true connoisseurs of Dracula and historians know, that the only association with Bram Stoker's Dracula and the real Dracula is pretty much the name. He doesn't. Bram Stoker's Dracula doesn't bear any resemblance to Dracula the Man. Mm-hmm. Of course, I was in love with Dracula the Vampire long before I discovered Dracula the Man, and I've had a long love affair with history as well. I've studied many histories of many countries in great depth. I studied at university, and what I've always been writing from tender age of 8 or 9. And I always knew that I was going to write in the horror genre. I wrote many stories in my teens, which I used to read to my friends, and the looks of shock and horror on their faces of things I used to write were like a drug to me, and spurred me on to improve myself as a writer in the genre. And of course, it's something that only comes over time. No matter how good you think you are, you have to keep writing to improve, and things evolve. And I've evolved myself as a writer, and around the age of 21, 22, I discovered Dracula the Man when I visited a local library in a new town that I'd moved to in England, and I found some of the biographies written by Radu Florescu and Raymond McNally, 2 Harvard professors who got a lot of acclaim for writing books about Dracula. They're probably not the most accurate books written about Dracula, but probably the most famous, and I read all their books cover to cover, a dozen times, and I went obviously exploring books from other writers, historical texts and fictional texts as well. Mm-hmm. And I did this over 7, 8, 9, 10 years as I was writing, and I decided I wanted to give my version of Dracula the Man, and try and give a true essence of who he was, because he was an incredible character. Much maligned, but very much misunderstood as well. And I wanted to combine that with my concept of what the vampire is and should be. My vampire is quite different to the vampire that many people are familiar with in all its different guises. I wanted to do something different, and I set it within this really vast, epic concept of based around creation and the first great war of the angels and Lucifer's expulsion from heaven and his desire to ascend again to heaven. And as religious people, myself included, believe the crucifixion erased man's sin, he identifies his only chance of ascending against heaven and turning man against God by the destruction of the institution of the Catholic Church, which is Christ's church, of course, and rose from that day in Jerusalem where he was crucified. And the Catholic Church came from there. So he sees the destruction of the Catholic Church as his way to turn man against God and win the battle for souls. As per the truce he agreed with God at the end of the First Great War of the Angels, to end the First Great War. He agreed, God agreed to truce with Lucifer that he can contest the soul of every man as long as he doesn't interfere with man's free will. And that's the pretext of what my concept is all about. And Lucifer uses Dracula as his instrument to try and achieve his ends and bring down the Catholic Church, and that's the reason I give for the creation of the vampire, someone who can obviously be immortal and live through the ages, but immortalized with Lucifer's blood.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the whole concept is based on.
That's really interesting. Now, through your research on Vlad the Impaler, or the Dracula and Dracula, the whole idea of Dracula the man and Dracula the fictional character, or whatever it is. What are some of the similarities and differences between Vlad the Impaler and Dracula?
Well, his real name was Dracula. His father was Vlad Dracul, and the A on the end of his name signifies that he was the son of Dracul. Mm-hmm. So he actually signed his name in his lifetime as Dracula.
Okay.
But the real Vlad Dracula, known now as Vlad the Impaler, a nickname that was given to him long after he was dead, mind. He bears no resemblance to the Dracula in Bram Stoker's book. Obviously, Bram Stoker will have been familiar with him through pamphlets and texts going around Europe, because Dracula was very famous in his own lifetime and long after he was dead. With the advent of the printing press in the 1450s, there were many, many stories widespread across the continents, especially in Germany and the German states, about his exploits and the infamous feats that are credited to him. He did kill a fifth of his people. He was quite brutal, but there were reasons for that, and why he was who he was. And he was a product of his time, and he's very much misunderstood. He wasn't a brutal monster. I mean, yeah, he was brutal. I mean, that can't be denied. But there were reasons for what he did, and that he would have sought justification for what he did if he ever had to explain himself, which I'm sure he never had to do. But if he were here now and had to explain his actions, I'm sure he would give justification for what he did based on the time and the age he lived in, and the situation of the country that he ruled. He ruled in Wallachia, not Transylvania, as many people believe. He was born in Transylvania. His father, Vlad Dracul, who was a son of Mercia, who ruled in Wallachia for 32 years, up to 1418. And as a boy, his father, Vlad Dracul, was sent to the court of the Emperor Sigismund, who was the head of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And he was Holy Roman Emperor, of course. And he had an order of knights called the Order of the Dragon, whose charge was to protect the Catholic faith against the expansion of Islam into Eastern Europe. And Vlad Dracul was ordained into this society in February 1431, and he was charged with the protection of the border between Transylvania and Wallachia, because Wallachia, which is now current-day southern Romania, in those days Romania was Transylvania in the northwest, Wallachia in the south, and Moldavia in the northeast. And Transylvania was pretty much the only buffer that the Hungarians had from Ottoman expansion. I mean, they invaded many times in the 14th, 15th, 16th centuries, and there were many, many great battles fought. But Wallachia was the hotbed for all of this, with Bulgaria bordering to the south, which was controlled by the Ottomans, and of course you had Anatolia, which is now modern-day Turkey, in the east. So rule in Wallachia was fraught with difficulty. I mean, when Vlad Dracul took the throne in 1436, he had to appease both the Hungarians to the north and the Ottomans to the east, and ultimately he made a treaty with Sultan Murad II, and of course this maligned him to John Hunyadi, who was the protector of Hungary, and he had to fight constantly to protect his autonomy. And the same was for Dracula when he followed him. Dracula reigned briefly in 1448, and then he took the throne proper in 1456, when he defeated his father's half-brother. And he had the same problems the whole time that he ruled. He only managed to keep his throne for 6 years before he finally fell under the weight of Ottoman invasions, but the lengths he went to and the things he did were quite incredible, and he has to be lauded for that. But that's the reason he did the things he did. He sought to remove the weak in his country. He removed all crime. He made every crime punishable by death by impalements. There was no room for leniency. Everyone suffered the same, and in doing so, he made his economy strong. He made the country strong, and that's why he managed to survive so long against the huge invasion from Mehmed from 1460 up to 1462. Finally, obviously, his numbers dwindled over time, and he was betrayed by many boyars who went over to the other side. But he was never actually defeated in battle, so he has to be commended on that.
Wow.
For such a small country. The man was a genius. But like I say, he was a product of his time, and the age he lived in dictated many of the things that he did.
Well, he sounds like every other general. Why do you think that movies depict Dracula as being such a horrible, horror figure? Why do you think movies and books and so on and so forth depict this man, or this great man? He sounds like, honestly, he's been mostly every other general that I know of. Why did they depict him in this way?
Because he's misunderstood, and most of the movies that you see are about Dracula the vampire, which, like I said, bears no resemblance to him. He himself, he was an incredible leader of men. He was a formidable warrior. There was no man who could defeat him with a sword. He was killed with arrows in the end. Nobody could defeat him in hand-to-hand combats. But his tactics in war were incredible, and he was a real revolutionary for his time. He used chemical warfare. He sent people who were badly diseased in amongst his enemy as they were marching towards him to infect them. He poisoned. He used biological warfare. He poisoned all the wells. I guess he wasn't the first to do that. I know Saladin did it before him, and maybe others too. But he was well aware of these ideas to starve the invading army, to give them no shelter, no food, no water. He used to burn villages and towns in their wake, remove all the livestock. What he couldn't move, he killed. He just destroyed everything. The scorched earth policy, and his guerrilla warfare tactics were incredible. And in one night attack, he killed 15,000-20,000 of his enemy.
Wow,
just incredible.
Yeah, it sounds really great. Listening to the historical facts. Yeah, he's like every other general, like I said, but he's so fictionally depicted in movies and stuff like that. He didn't really drink blood, did he?
No.
No, I didn't think so.
If you drink blood, you're going to choke on you.
I didn't think so. But did that? Yeah, no. I'm just saying. Did that? Did the whole drinking the blood come from things like him impaling people and stuff like that? Do you think that it was a metaphor for something?
Well, there was a lot of propaganda written about him, even during his lifetime, and I guess most of these stories stem from that. It's said that he sat and ate his food amongst the dying people that he had impaled. I don't know whether that's true or not, but he was a very ruthless man. There's no doubt about that. A very serious man, and he wasn't a man to be reckoned with. That's for sure.
Well, I find this all very interesting, and that's why I indulge on this, is because films totally depict him in the wrong light. Just by learning from you, the various things that he did, and so on and so forth, it's totally different than what Hollywood depicts Dracula to be.
Well, Francis Ford Coppola gave the briefest glimpse of him at the start of Bram Stoker's Dracula with Gary Oldman in 1992.
Yeah.
Where his wife threw herself to her death when Dracula's brother was laying siege to his castle. That's the briefest glimpse I've seen of Dracula the Man. But after that, of course, it was all Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is a fictional character, and the likeness that Bram Stoker used was probably Henry Irving, who was an actor in the late 19th century, stage actor, and that's what he based his likeness of Dracula on. So of course he bears no resemblance to the real man, whose face is quite famous now from portraits. So really the only association between the two would be the name. Even the locations Stoker used were not accurate.
All right, so learned a lot about Dracula today. Let's move on from that. I want to talk a little bit about writing structure and how you go about, writing your books and talking more about Dracula the Man than talking about the fictional character, that's created by Hollywood. And do you use a lot of descriptive words like metaphors, stuff like that in your writing to describe Dracula the Man?
I try and write in a very cinematic style. I try and write in a way that makes you feel like you're there in the middle of the action. And a lot of people have told me when they've read my stuff that they feel that they were there and were experiencing it at first hand. And that's what I set out to do. So if I succeed in that, then I've obviously achieved what I wanted. I try and, obviously my books are historical, so I try and use more appropriate diction and obviously the speech that I use between my characters has to be as authentic as possible for that time. I try and write in a way that adds more authenticity to that time as well. With Dracula the Man, I just try and focus on my image of what I imagine him to be and every aspect of his personality. And I find that my readers actually identify more with him as the antagonist than they do with the protagonist in my stories. I don't know if that's a tribute to me or not, but they seem to love him even though he's the bad guy. So his humanity is obviously living on, even though he's a vampire. And of course, people who've read Bound by Blood 1 and 2 have only seen him as a vampire. They haven't seen him as a man, but they will do shortly now with the release of The Path of Decay, where I cover the first 21 years of his life.
Awesome. Really interesting. All right, so let's get into the more technical things about writing. And, how long did it take you to get your first book published? Did you go through a publishing house, or did you self-publish?
When I first tried to get published in 2005, I'd only written The Reckoning Day, which is a much later book, as I've explained already. I had a very good representative. I actually didn't appreciate at the time how good she actually was and what she actually did for me. But she got into all the major publishing houses who she was connected with, and I had some offers which I refused. In retrospect, I'm glad that I did refuse those offers because my concept has evolved much more since that time, and my writing has improved, of course, over time as well. And even though I had a few offers, I had a lot of rejections as well, because Elizabeth Kostova's Dracula book was coming out at that very time, The Historian, and that was a book that had acquired a huge advance, and there was a lot of publicity and a lot of talk about that book, and a lot of publishing houses weren't happy to try and promote a second Dracula book at the same time. Which in hindsight was a good thing for me, because my concept has evolved very much in the last 8 years. And if I had accepted an offer at that time, it could have affected everything that I've done since. So after that, I resisted any attempts to go through mainstream publishing. I wanted to spend the time to hone my craft, develop my concept. It was released briefly in 2007. It was available on every retail site, but I stopped it from going live and held back on the release, and I'm glad that I did that too.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, carry on.
Okay. Okay. Well, for every author out there, there's a disappointment or, something that comes along when they first start writing that, they're not accepted by publishing houses. They're not accepted. Their writing is not accepted. Did you have any of these disappointments in the beginning? From publishing houses to writing style. Did you have any of these disappointments from the beginning till now, or no?
Well, I mean, a lot depends on what you're looking to achieve or what you're looking to do. Initially, yeah, I was disappointed at some of the rejection I had. I still had offers which I turned down as well, which I'm glad I did in hindsight. I wanted to go my own way. I'm more interested in literary acclaim than financial success at the moment. So I want to wow people with my books. I've got a pretty incredible story to tell. People who've read the Bound by Blood books have only just touched on the tip of the iceberg right now. When they actually see the full concept, when 5 or 6 books are out there, it's going to blow a lot of people away, and that's what I'm looking to do. I want people to read my books and think, "Wow, that was awesome," and that's my primary incentive. And therefore, I always wanted to go my own way, and I always wanted to publish myself. I was thinking about doing this long before the advent of digital publishing with Amazon. Mm-hmm. That's obviously made it a lot easier to do, but I wanted to do it many years before that. But I just wanted to take my time and do it right, and to develop my premise and my concepts. And finally, when I released it on the wall, I want it to be such that people are just blown away by it and desperate for more. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm striving for. Of course, it's slow. It's a slow process, but it's gaining momentum. My books have offended a few people, which reflects in some reviews. But I've had lots of great reviews as well by people who completely love what I'm doing or what I'm trying to achieve. You can't please everybody, but I will say that my books are brutal. They're based in a brutal age, and I'm depicting monsters. Mm-hmm. There's no sparkly vampires here.
Gotcha. Okay.
They are the real deal, born of evil.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to hold back anything. I want to give it, warts and all. I want to hit you in the face. I want you to feel it. I want you to experience my books. I want you to experience what my characters are experiencing, good and bad. I want you to feel everything.
Wow.
Every activity, every act of love. I want you to feel everything. And that's the way I write, and that's what I'm setting out to do. And if I offend you, I apologize. But it's a brutal book set in a brutal age, and these guys had very, very little value on life, much less than is today. But then today, what value of life do these dictators in Africa have when they slaughter and do the things they do?
Yeah.
It was pretty much the same in the 15th century, but maybe more widespread. And
well,
of course, life
definitely.
expectancies were much lower in those days.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And life for a peasant was very hard, no matter where you lived, whether it was in England, Ireland, Wallachia, Italy. It was the same for everyone. They all endured the same. But I'm trying to give as accurate a portrayal of that as I can. Mm-hmm. So I will hold nothing back.
Well, I mean, there was many...
And I make no apologies for it.
Yeah, well, there was many brutal cultures back then. I mean, like, the Greeks were brutal. The Romans were sort of brutal. I mean, like, there was a lot of, different brutal people or groups of people out there during this period of time. So, I mean, yeah, it's okay to be depictive, of... the time, because that's what that time was. Everybody was like a barbarian almost, back in the day. Everybody was like, really brutal in how they fought and stuff like that. Nowadays, compared to then, you're right. Africa is the only place where you would see these things happening. But, because I guess it's a third world continent, but the whole world acted like the third world back in Dracula's day. So, you really can't say that, depicting it in the wrong way. You weren't depicting it in the wrong way. You were telling people, well, this is how brutal it really was back in the day, so.
But I go to both sides of the spectrum. I mean, there's deep love and romance in my stories as well. It's not all blood and gore. I try and cross many genres. Essentially, my books are gothic horror, dark gothic horror, but they're also romance novels. They're also paranormal, fantasy, of course, historical. There's so much in them that I just want to give the wow factor. I just want you to read my book and just say wow. That's all I'm striving to do.
That's great. That's your books are international, right? People could buy them internationally, correct?
At the moment, they're only on Amazon. I haven't looked for any other retail outlets, although they're probably listed on many other retail outlets because Nielsen Book Data, who hold all book information, and they do release that information to every outlet. But I've only actually made it available on Amazon. But yeah, the sales have been all over the world. Okay,
that's great. Yeah, because I know from having my own book out that my book is international, as well. People, I'm on Amazon and I'm also on Barnes and Noble. So, what about electronic? Are you on the Nook or Kindle yet, or no?
Just Kindle, just Amazon.
Just Kindle. Okay. All right. That's good to know. Obviously, because I know a few people with a Kindle. I'll let them know. I know people that like horror here in Staten Island, New York, so I'll let them know about your books and stuff like that. So tell me. Horror
enthusiasts do love my work, but like I said, it's a lot more than just horror.
That's understood, yeah. But I definitely want to know something that I've wanted to ask you for a long time. I know you've been an author for a while. Have any of your books been on the bestseller list?
In the Amazon lists, they've both been in the top 5 in the horror sections. So even though some people might call that best-selling, I wouldn't consider that best-selling, no.
Okay. All right. Well,
it's reached number 5 in the UK and the US.
That's awesome. That's good. I think that's good. I think anything above the top 10 is awesome. I'll take it one day. To get up in that area.
That was only around 180 on the actual Amazon list, so It was outside the top 100. I think you have to reach the top 100 to consider yourself a success in that respect.
All right. Well, you're a success anyway, my friend. don't worry about the numbers.
Well, I'm more interested in content and quality than selling books at the moment. But of course, at the end of the day, it would be nice to get some kind of reward for many, many years of hard work.
Oh, of course, definitely.
That's secondary at the moment. My craft comes first.
God bless you. I mean, that's great that you were born with this talent. You utilizing this talent, and hopefully, one day you will be on the bestseller list, and so on and so forth. And it's great to see people use their talents and their natural born talents. I mean, like you said, you've been writing since the age of 7 or 8. So you've been writing for a lot of years. And it's great to see people use their talent like that. Did you know right away that you were destined to be a writer? Always
felt it was my destiny to make it as a writer. Of course, you don't realize how difficult that is going to be later in life, but yeah, it was all I ever wanted to do, really.
That's awesome. That's great. For me, it's a secondary thing, but I have the talent to write. It's not something, that, I'm going to say, well, that's what I'm going to devote my life to. Me personally, I have my book out. I'd like to do a few more books, but I'm not like you, like so passionate, about, the writing, and knowing from the beginning of life that you're destined to write. I'm more of a technical person. I'm more.
I've taken my time.
What's up?
I've taken my time, but the whole expansiveness of my concept is so huge. It's so vast. It's something that is going to probably be a life's work. And I probably will have to dedicate my whole life to bringing it out. I'm looking at maybe 15, 16 volumes by the time I'm done.
Okay.
I've written many of them already, but to get them up to scratch and to be able to release them, obviously it's going to take a lot more work. But it's going to take me the best part of my life, I'm sure.
Well, we have Aphrodite Smiles here in the chat room, and she says hello, Shane.
Yeah, she's a friend of mine.
You have any questions for Shane, Aphrodite? Would love to have some guest questions coming from the chat room, or again, we do have a call-in number at 310-982-4253. You're more than welcome to call in with your questions, any comments you might have, or you're more than welcome to type in the chat room. If you joined us here in the chat room, like Aphrodite, you could join us here in the chat room and ask your questions and comments by signing up for the blogtalkradio.com website and then going back to blogtalkradio.com/Joey Giggles and joining us right here in the Joey Giggles Blog Talk Radio chat room. Any questions there, Aphrodite, for Shane today? Would love a question from a listener. That would be great. Thank you. If you have any questions, please type them there in the chat room. You're more than welcome. We got 14 minutes left, roughly, here to the show. And I'd love to know a little bit more, if you don't mind, on how you've decided. Oh, wait, hold on. We got a question. Okay. Let's see. A comment. Shane, I was never a Dracula fanatic, but through Dracula the Man, you have changed that. Your writing is really amazing. I agree with Joey. You'll be on the bestsellers list in the near future. So there's a comment for you, Shane. There you go.
Very much.
Yeah. Aphrodite with a beautiful comment. And I always profess on my shows utilizing your talents, utilizing your God-given talents, and God bless him, he is using his God-given talent, and he will be on the bestsellers list, in my estimation as well, Aphrodite, in the near future as well. So, yeah, thank you for that comment. And again, if you have any questions, comments, please type them there, in the chat room. So where was I? I wanted to delve into more of the technical writing stuff. And you say you write brutally, a little bit, about what happened during Vlad the Impaler's time. And that's great. And you probably use a lot of descriptive features and stuff like that to describe this. How do you go about, because you say you didn't really talk about Vlad the Man yet. So how do you go about describing Dracula, the I guess the fictional character?
Well, the fictional character is obviously the vampire.
Right.
And I've tried to take people back to the dark vampire, as far removed as possible from the current trend, which is aimed at teenagers who have probably no real concept of what vampires used to be or were meant to be, as depicted by Bram Stoker or Anne Rice or Kim Newman or Chelsea Quinn Yarborough. The darker vampire, and of course I've tried to give a return to the darker vampire and change it slightly and bring a new angle to it all. Yeah, I think I've achieved that. Only people who read the books can be the true judges of it. But yeah, I've always wanted to create something different. I've always had my own ideas about who and what they are and what they should be. And of course, in my books they are created to fit the premise, to help Lucifer achieve his ends. And of course, my influences are, like I told you previously, more Kabbalistic than biblical. Even though at first glance people would think my influences are biblical, they're not really at all. They're more Kabbalistic, based on the Kabbalah, which are the ancient Judaism teachings, which predate all religions, based on creation. And when I go into hell and give my depictions of hell and the hierarchies of hell, I've pretty much drawn on the Kabbalah for that, and more importantly, the Hermetic Kabbalah, which was used by occultists in the many occult societies in the early 20th century. People like Aleister Crowley and company. So, yeah. So, I mean, there's so much to these stories. I mean, there is a whole new vision of hell and what hell is, and all the creatures that frequent that place. Fallen angels, obviously.
Well, really interesting chatting with you today, Shane. And I'm glad we got more of a show out of this, and we actually got a lot of good questions out there, and I learned a lot of new stuff from you about Dracula and so on and so forth. So I would say about this time we'll talk about a conclusion to the show. And do you have anything you'd like to say in conclusion to sum up everything we've talked about today? And please tell us where we could buy your books, where we could find your books, and let us know when the new books are coming out and everything that goes with the sales. All right.
Okay. Well, essentially, the Dracula Chronicles are a new concept which combined Dracula the Man with my own version of Dracula the Vampire, based around Lucifer's attempts to ascend again to heaven following his defeat after the First Great War of the Angels, which began after the creation of mankind, and his jealousy of mankind and God's love for man. So my concept just revolves around that basically, and is set from the early 15th century up to the modern day, where both sides manipulate all the major players through the centuries to try and achieve their ends. So as the books progress, you will meet all the major players in history, and anywhere where Vatican influence was affected, be that from the Reformation of 1517, the Italian Wars in the 1520s between France and Spain, England split with Rome in the 1520s and 1530s, and all the major events throughout history, anywhere where the Vatican influence was affected or hurt or suffered, Dracula is there, pulling all the strings and making it all happen. You can find my books at the moment only on Amazon. I'm still exclusive to them, but you can find out plenty of information about the books on my website, which is www.draculaChronicles.co.uk. You can find me on Goodreads as well, on Facebook, Shane O'Neill's Dracula Chronicles, and there's plenty of information about the books there.
Awesome. Shane, thank you so much.